Imagine a floating city towering 20 decks above the ocean surface, stretching 365 meters from bow to stern and displacing a staggering 250,000 gross tons. When Legend of the Seas, the newest marvel of the Icon class, takes to the water, she represents the absolute apex of modern naval architecture. With massive open-air parks, glass-domed water parks, and enough enclosed volume to house nearly 10,000 passengers and crew, ships of this scale defy our traditional understanding of what can float. They are vibrant, hyper-engineered metropolises of steel. Now compare this modern Leviathan to the most famous ship in human history, the RMS Titanic. When Titanic entered service in 1912, she was hailed as the undisputed behemoth of the seas, a 269-meter-long floating palace that pushed the very boundaries of Edwardian engineering. To the public of that era, imagining a ship significantly larger than Titanic was almost beyond comprehension. Yet today, when you place these two historic vessels side by side, the unsinkable legend looks almost modest. The numbers sound impossible. Modern cruise giants like Legend of the Seas are not just slightly bigger, they possess over 5 times the total internal volume of Titanic. But how is that mathematically and structurally possible when the modern ship is only about 35% longer? The answer lies in a fascinating story of naval architecture, changing physics, shifting societal demands, and a century of safety evolution born from tragedy. More than a century after the Titanic disaster, Royal Caribbean began building an entirely different class of vessel, the Icon class, designed and constructed at the Meyer Turku shipyard in Finland. The first ship in the series, Icon of the Seas, departed on its inaugural commercial voyage in January 2024 and immediately earned the title of the world's largest cruise ship. In August 2025, its sister ship, Star of the Seas, joined the fleet with essentially the same dimensions and concept. Then, in the summer of 2026, the fleet welcomed its third Icon-class vessel, Legend of the Seas, which officially shares the title of the world's largest cruise ship alongside its two predecessors. All three ships share nearly identical specifications: a gross tonnage of approximately 248,660 to 250,800 tons, a length of about 365 meters, roughly 1,196 feet, and a height comparable to a 20-story building. Legend of the Seas can accommodate around 7,600 guests at double occupancy, and with a crew of more than 2,000, nearly 10,000 people can be aboard at any given time, essentially a small floating city. Construction of a ship this size is itself a feat of modern engineering. Icon-class vessels are assembled from dozens of massive steel blocks, each built separately and then welded together in dry dock, a process that takes several years from the first steel cut to the ship's naming ceremony. Legend of the Seas sails a mix of Caribbean itineraries, calling at Royal Caribbean's private destinations as well as popular ports across the Eastern and Western Caribbean, continuing the line's strategy of pairing record-breaking ship size with equally ambitious private island experiences ashore. To grasp just how massive today's cruise ships have become, it helps to remember what once counted as gigantic. The Titanic, built by Harland and Wolff in Belfast and sent on its only voyage in April 1912, measured about 269 meters in length and had a gross tonnage of 46,328 registered tons. It could carry up to 2,435 passengers, along with roughly 892 crew members, a total of just over 3,000 people. At the time, it was one of the largest moving structures ever built by human hands, part of a fierce rivalry among shipping lines to build ever bigger, faster, and more luxurious ocean liners for the lucrative transatlantic route between Europe and North America. The ship's tragic sinking on the night of April 15, 1912, after striking an iceberg during its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York, forever cemented its name in maritime history. More than 1,500 people lost their lives, and the disaster led directly to sweeping reforms in maritime safety regulations, including mandatory lifeboat capacity for all passengers and crew, round-the-clock radio watch, and the establishment of the International Ice Patrol, rules that still shape how passenger ships are designed and operated today. Comparing the most telling metric, gross tonnage, which measures a ship's total internal volume, makes the difference between the Titanic and Legend of the Seas especially striking. At 46,328 tons versus nearly 249,000 tons, that's roughly 5.4 times more volume. Put another way, you could fit approximately 5 Titanics inside the internal space of a single modern Icon-class ship. The difference in length is less dramatic, about a third longer, since modern liners are built not just longer but dramatically wider and taller, packed with decks of entertainment and living space that simply didn't exist on early 20th century ocean liners. Passenger capacity has also grown several times over. Where the Titanic carried just over 2,000 passengers, Legend of the Seas can host up to 7,600 guests at once, more than 3 times as many. Add the crew, and the total number of people aboard the modern ship at any given moment exceeds the total number of people who were aboard the Titanic during its fateful voyage by more than 3-fold. Height tells a similar story. The Titanic had a relatively modest profile above the waterline by today's standards, with room for 4 funnels and a handful of open decks. Legend of the Seas, by contrast, rises the equivalent of roughly 20 stories above the waterline, with 18 or more guest-accessible decks stacked with pools, sports courts, restaurants, and entertainment venues. Vertical space that simply had no equivalent on early 20th century ocean liners, which were designed primarily around cabins, dining saloons, and a promenade deck rather than resort-style amenities. Legend of the Seas is built around the concept of themed neighborhoods, 8 in total, each offering its own atmosphere, entertainment, and dining experience. Thrill Island is the largest water park at sea, featuring a record number of water slides, including the longest and fastest drop slide found on any cruise ship, along with surf simulators and a rock climbing zone for guests who want their downtime to come with an adrenaline kick. Chill Island is a laid-back zone with 4 pools and loungers designed for guests seeking a calmer vacation pace, complete with swim-up bars and shaded cabanas. The suspended infinity pool extends beyond the edge of the ship and hangs high above the water, offering guests panoramic ocean views while they swim, making it one of the most photographed features on any Icon-class ship. Surfside is a neighborhood built specifically for families with young children, complete with dedicated pools, playgrounds, splash zones, and themed restaurants, all on a scale unmatched by earlier ship designs. The AquaDome is a vast glass and steel structure, housing restaurants and live aerial and acrobatic shows, with panoramic ocean views in any weather, described by Royal Caribbean as the largest structure of its kind ever built at sea. The Hideaway is an adults-only retreat with its own infinity pool, elevated bars, and dedicated entertainment programming, tucked away from the ship's more family-oriented zones. Altogether, the ship offers more than 24 restaurants and bars, an evening entertainment theater, an ice skating rink, and a range of activities that even the most ambitious engineers of the early 20th century could scarcely have imagined. Where the Titanic's entertainment options were largely limited to a gymnasium, a squash court, and evening music in the first-class lounge, Legend of the Seas offers guests a full week's worth of programming without ever needing to repeat an activity. Comparing Legend of the Seas to the Titanic isn't just a marketing angle. It illustrates how dramatically the very idea of a passenger ship has changed in a little over a century. The Titanic was built as a symbol of luxury and technological achievement in transatlantic travel, designed above all to carry passengers from one continent to another as quickly and comfortably as possible. Modern megaships like Legend of the Seas, by contrast, are no longer simply a means of transportation. They're a destination in themselves. Floating resorts where the ocean crossing is the point of the vacation, not a means to an end. It's also worth noting how far shipboard safety technology has advanced. Modern vessels are equipped with far more sophisticated radar tracking, satellite communication, and next-generation watertight compartments. Improvements shaped in no small part by the lessons learned from the 1912 tragedy. Royal Caribbean has no plans to slow down. A fourth Icon-class ship, Hero of the Seas, is already announced for 2027. Meanwhile, other cruise lines aren't standing still either. MSC Cruises launched its own largest vessel, MSC World America, in 2026, and is reportedly developing a new class of ships designed to rival the Icon class in scale. The race for the title of world's largest cruise ship, which began with ambitious transatlantic shipping companies at the dawn of the 20th century, continues today. Only now it's measured not just in hull length, but in water slides, restaurants, and the sheer range of experiences a single ship can offer.